Brainstorming and sharing ideas is the funnest part of the creative process. We decided to skip the boring part of actually making stuff and just do the fun part. I'm your host, Tom Walma.
I'm Chris Young.
I'm John King.
And I'm David Lesneski.
And this is Creativity Wasted.
I went to a funeral recently, and it sucked, because all funerals suck.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think, like, what could possibly make it not such a painful experience. And so I came up with the Funeral Brigade. So this is a collection of people that you can rent and put in your funeral or a funeral of a friend to make it just a bit more interesting, a bit more of a get-together kind of feel.
You mean
so
like
I have a list,
like a ventriloquist that would talk as the corpse? And
that is, you hit the nail on the head
I
there.
wondered what that wire was in the image.
Yeah, so that's under the pranksters category.
There you go. All right.
Okay, categories. I like that.
Yeah. I hadn't think of any other pranksters that wouldn't just be like super mean, but so we have the entertainers division, something that we all can relate to. So you could have a magician at your funeral. You know, everyone loves magicians. They could just go around doing little card tricks for people, add a little bit of levity to the situation. And then I just wrote down some of my favorite stand-up comics. So Emo Phillips, Paul F. Tompkins, David Cross. We have them all.
I would love Paul F. Tompkins at a funeral. I feel like he would, like, as an entertainer, that would be gold for him.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. And then in kind of a spin-off of the entertainers, we have the celebrities, ranging from very low-end to very high-end, depending on your budget. So, for instance, we have Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman, who you may not know, but you've probably seen them in the movie Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so they're there just really to make people feel uncomfortable. Like, if just waiting for people to recognize them and being like, oh no, what are they going to do? But nothing bad happens. Next up, a step up from that, is we have one of the dudes from the band Imagine Dragons. And honestly, it may or may not be him. It's just like a white dude, because nobody knows what Imagine Dragons looks like. So you could literally send like a member of Imagine Dragons to like every funeral, and nobody would be able to say no.
Is there something specific about Imagine Dragons that gives like a funeral vibe, or is it just you like the band? Or
I hate the band.
Band with an interesting name.
No, yeah, I think it's just they're just like really popular, and so like someone will recognize them, or think they recognize them. And then I just threw in, just for fun, Steve Buscemi.
He has a funeral.
You can't go wrong with that.
Face, yeah.
Yeah, he has a very mournful face on him, and you know he could go around telling people why he doesn't tip. For anyone that saw Reservoir Dogs back in 1992, but yeah, so that's kind of the idea. Is just a selection of people that you can inject into your funeral or the funeral of someone that you love, to make it just not as horrendous an experience, because we've all been to horrible funerals before. It sucks.
I know I have a sick, twisted sense of whatever is funny, but wouldn't it be cool, you being the guy that knew you were going to die, at your funeral, have the guy that delivers the publisher's clearinghouse check show up at your funeral and say, "Dang, what happened?"
Oh, so the family doesn't get the money.
Yeah, and you watch all the people that would fight over the money that they're not gonna get. That would be kind of, I don't know. That just seems like if you could set that up, that would be one last pretty good prank played on some people. So
I like that idea a lot.
They just bury the check in the coffin with the person.
Yeah. Some guy trying to stuff a big check in there.
Fold it and it goes in there and no one else can have it.
Yeah.
Would you always, like a magician, the other people at the funeral would know that you hired them, but in some of the cases that it could be sort of under the radar whether or not they're just there for the funeral or whether they were hired to be entertainment. Is that what you want? To like, just blend in and nobody know?
Yeah, so definitely certain things where you would want them to be anonymous. Like, I think Steve Buscemi, that would be fun. just to have people think that you knew him like really deeply.
Right, and show up and
like,
just put on the waterworks and everything. Like, oh my God,
yeah.
he was gone. So, like, is it these characters or actors or whatever you would call them at the funeral? Do you have them categorized by price, like a schedule? Like, if at this level you can get the guy that played, the friend of this guy, and then it goes upwards from there, where you're. Because y'all also like would see, like, when you go to Vegas or you go somewhere, you see different levels of impersonators. Like in front of the cheaper casinos, there's these guys, and then higher up the food chain, there's some of these other people. So is it scheduled kind of like that, or is it just sort of you've got them locked down?
I think it's definitely a range. If you want the Steve Buscemi experience, that's going to cost a lot more. So I think there's probably going to be like 3-ish classes, your bronze level, your silver level, and your gold level.
If you want Ron Jeremy,
he's in prison. You got to have the funeral at the prison.
Oh,
yeah. Do you guys were you guys watching? Ever watch Community?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the episode where they have to be celebrity impersonators for that kid's bar mitzvah?
I have not seen that one.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, it's good. Like, they find, like, every person in the show ends up being like some celebrity impersonator. Like, Britta is white Michael Jackson and Donald Glover is young black Michael Jackson. But like, I feel like that'd be kind of fun too, where like you have like you were saying, the different tiers of celebrity. Like, okay, we're maybe not going to get like Tom Cruise, but we'll get like the next best thing to Tom Cruise. It's not Ted Cruz. That's the person.
that would be a big difference.
It'd be
but like,
Tom
I don't know.
Cruise, drag queen, Tom Cruise, or whatever.
Something like that. I don't know. Tom Cruise drag queen would be pretty cool too. I mean, if they can do all the same stunts that Tom Cruise does in heels, that's kind of awesome.
I think if you want Ted Cruz, you actually get paid for that. Like, you don't have to pay for
right.
Well, yeah.
That would have to be in Mexico or Cancun, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It's extra if you have to sneak them across the border.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, part of the problem with this and why you might need all these like impersonators is like you don't know the exact day you're gonna die, so you can't like lock anybody down if they have like. I mean, even if all they do is this, like they're completely washed up. What if 2 of their fans die on the same week? And so it might be like, well, you have a list of who you want in what order, and it's like, well, depending on when you die, or are they shooting a movie in your
maybe
area?
It could be like Cameo, right, where they could film it and play it up on the big board. So
that'd be kind of cool, actually. Like your last words spoken by Keith David or someone like that. It's got like just a really impressive voice.
Morgan Freeman, I think.
That's
the classic.
Yeah. I'm a Carpenter Thing fan. I went with Keith David.
Carl Sagan, millions and millions of years from now.
Yeah, Carl Sagan.
Patrick Stewart, space, the last frontier, the final frontier, that kind of stuff. That'd be kind of fun.
I wish I could do impressions.
Yeah, I can't do impressions.
See you on the other side.
I do offensive foreign accents.
Yeah, right.
And not that good. Did you have a name for the service? Is it in like a website?
Yeah, the Funeral Brigade. Dot.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, I thought it was horse meat. No, I'm just kidding.
One of the
that would be Whiplash.
On the podcast that came up that's kind of the opposite of your idea. Nick Ladorf, I don't know if you know him, a comic from Lansing. He had an idea called funeral attendant stand-ins. And so it would be to hire people if you don't want to go to a funeral and they pretend to be you and sign the guest book as you.
They're actually, like, rich people will do that if they're going to prison. They will literally hire someone to go to prison for them who looks like them.
Oh, really?
Like, that's a thing that happens.
I mean, like, I know there's like, there's the fall guy, like, like mobsters use and all. Like, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Got enough money, the laws just don't apply to you.
That seems like it would be more of I don't know why, but like a South America thing. It seems like it wouldn't work in
Okay.
the States, like Asia, probably not. It seems like a drug lord thing.
He had to say Asia.
It just,
Let's not.
I
be
mean, not trying to be
stereotypical.
offensive, but it seems like a drug lord thing. A drug lord could pull it off. Have a
Right.
impersonator, because they do things like they tunnel out of prison or they
Right.
bribe the guards to break out. It just seems like there's more chaos like that down there at the moment.
Yeah.
So why I brought that up.
Nick's idea reminds me of there's an article I read like a few years back of someone hired a double to go to their high school reunion. Like they were like a pretty average, for lack of a better term, looking person, but they hired like a good looking person to like go in their place and be like, oh yeah, this is the glow up. This is the 10-year glow up. That's all.
Just gaslight everybody, make up stories, and insist that they're true. But yeah, I guess if you combine your idea and Nick's idea, it could be like, well, the guest or the person you hire is making up shit. The attendees are making up shit. It's just a
Might
cavalcade
as
of lies. I did a thing once. I think it was, I'm not going to say whose funeral it was. It was a family member. And after the funeral, I challenged my nephew to a foot race because he was like 10 or 11 or 12 or something. And I guess the way I ran was like funny looking, and my aunt just burst out laughing like at me. And it was like, I was okay with it for one, but it was like, there is the sort of inappropriate laugh, like that releases the tension, like because it was a funeral and you're not supposed to laugh, it just makes you laugh more. That was kind of one of those moments that are kind of great, like the inappropriate laugh that doesn't have consequence.
I was saying, I actually, I at the funeral that I mentioned, I actually told some jokes on stage as part of like the eulogy thing, just to kind of like
you had to give
break it
You
up.
had to give the eulogy.
Yeah, there were 3 people that spoke at the funeral, and I was one of them. Yeah, so I injected some humor in it. Like it worked really well. Like everyone had that sort of release, in this awful situation. So
Yeah. That's
I recommend
good.
it.
It's probably, unless it was totally a surprise, it's not exactly what I was talking about. But yeah, it definitely helps. But in your case, I don't know if it was like an inappropriate release. It was probably
No.
just a appropriate release, like expected.
Yeah.
That you might crack a joke at a eulogy,
Mm-hmm.
I like the inappropriateness of it. That just you don't want to laugh because you're not supposed to laugh, but you can't help but laugh. To me, those moments are golden,
Oh, totally.
unless it causes a falling out and causes someone emotional trauma or something, But
Yeah.
Maybe you could try to replicate that somehow in your system. The inappropriate belly roaring laugh, That'd be hard to do, but maybe. Any other thoughts on the funeral?
Funeral
Brigade.
Brigade. I wonder if we can reverse the.
It's mirrored. Yeah.
It's not necessary just to watch my awful handwriting.
I'm not a huge fan of the name because it almost implies like they're going to put out a fire or something.
Well, they are. They're there to make you feel better. Like funerals suck, like John says. So it's like we need the funeral brigade stat. Like just get them over there. Send over our best Buscemi impersonator. Or whoever.
It also implies a group. I don't know. I don't want to just bash the name, but I'm bad. I think we can come up with something better. Funeral.
I work so hard.
Tom's
I like the
trying,
idea, just not the name. Funeral, because the other thing is, it might only be one person. Funeral entertainment brigade, maybe that's a little long.
Friends in death. Friends in death. How's that?
I'll take it.
Something like mirth or I don't even know what the word mirth means, but like short word for entertainment.
I don't know. I worked so hard on the funeral brigade that I just
You've crushed it.
You didn't
crushed
invest
it,
anything else
Tom.
into any other ideas. You had it.
We'll probably come up with a perfect name like right after the stream ends.
That's how it goes. Goes.
Yep.
Let's wrap it up with that. Any shows or podcasts or things you guys want to plug before we go?
I am doing a fun little show on Wednesday at 734 Brewing in Ypsilanti, and we were talking about magic. I'm going to be doing magic at that show
Hey.
in addition to comedy.
Awesome.
So that should be a fun thing.
Going to be in Indianapolis Friday and Saturday night at Helium. Next week, going to do some shows in North Carolina and Virginia. And the end of the month up at the casino in Escanaba. So check me out, chrisyoungcomic.com.
You can always check out the Mexican 734 on Insta and Threads, and Comedy by David on Facebook for just whatever I'm thinking or whatever I got going on.
I'm doing a show in Kalamazoo on Thursday. Meet me at Valhalla. I'm doing a thing online called Gaming McFitness, where I build video game controllers into fitness machines. And so I have one for a rowing machine. I modified an omnidirectional treadmill that I bought. I have one for a treadmill. I'm eventually going to build one for a jump rope. Some of them are sort of silly, but you can play video games while working out. I don't sell them. I just use them. Eventually, maybe I'll get to one to sell, but it's a hobby thing I do. It's on Twitch and Kick and all of the YouTube, all of the streaming platforms.
This has been a production of Planet Amp Podcast, powered by Pinecast.